Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the newly released guidance from the Environment Agency on treating and using water-containing concrete at construction sites.
This is big news, especially if you're managing concrete wash water from construction projects in England. You know, that stuff you use to clean your mixers. You might be thinking, okay, what's the big deal? Yeah.
The Environment Agency just released some brand new guidance on 23rd October 2024, and it's got some pretty big implications for how you handle this.
Seemingly mundane.
Yes, mundane but important, but actually quite important part of the job. This new guidance comes in the form of what they call a regulatory position statement. It's not a new law.
But if you follow the rules that they lay out in this RPS 287, you can avoid need to comply with some other more complex rules.
So what exactly does this RPS 287 cover?
Basically, it applies to any water used for washing equipment that comes into contact with concrete on your construction site.
So that's anything from those massive concrete mixers to the trucks delivering the concrete to the pumps.
Yes, it's all about how you store, treat, and even reuse that water.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting.
You are actually allowed to use treated wastewater to wash equipment and even to make new concrete, but there's a big caveat here. You absolutely cannot use this water for dust suppression. And there's a very good reason for that.
Okay, I was going to say because of hexavalent chromium risk. I know that stuff can be nasty.
Exactly. Hexavalent chromium is a known carcinogen, and the Environment Agency is understandably very concerned about preventing its release into the environment. So using untreated or untreated water containing concrete to keep the dust down is a big no-no.
Okay, so no shortcuts there.
No shortcuts.
But let's get practical, okay? What do construction managers actually need to do?
You need a detailed method statement. And I'm not talking about just a quick scribble on a piece of paper, right?
It needs to be a comprehensive document that covers everything from how you're going to prevent pollution to how you will train your staff on these new procedures.
And I'm guessing meticulous record keeping is a must too.
Absolutely. You need to document everything. Keep those records for at least 2 years. If the Environment Agency comes knocking, you can show them exactly what you've been doing and how you've been following the rules. So, method statement check, record keeping check.
Well, let's talk about storage. You can't just have puddles of concrete wash water all over your site. You need safe and secure storage. The Environment Agency suggests things like impermeable settling tanks. Basically, tanks that don't leak, or specially engineered lagoons, or even those big leak-proof skips.
Okay, and there's a limit on how much water you can store any one location on your site.
That's right. You're only allowed to store up to 30 cubic meters of this water at any single location.
Okay, so we've covered storage. What about treatment? Are there specific methods that are allowed under this RPS?
There are. They've outlined a few different methods that are acceptable, things like filtration, settlement, physical dewatering, that kind of thing. They even allow you to use products that solidify the water containing concrete.
Yes, interesting.
Before you use it again or move it off-site, so you've got options.
You've got options.
But I bet there are some things you definitely can't do, right?
Yes. For example, you absolutely cannot use any unauthorized chemicals or fullants in the treatment process. The Environment Agency is very specific about that.
It's all about making sure you're not introducing anything harmful into the environment.
And if you're using any kind of specialized treatment system, you need to make sure you've got properly trained personnel.
Absolutely.
Operating and maintaining it.
Yes. No cutting corners when it comes to environmental compliance.
This all makes sense. But what happens if you can't reuse all that treated water on site?
That's where the rules around disposal come in. And it can get a little tricky depending on where you are discharging the water.
So there are different rules for different types of discharge.
Exactly. For example, you'll need specific permits for discharging into the foul sewer. That's the system that carries wastewater from toilets and sinks, or for discharging into surface water like rivers and streams, or even into the ground.
And I'm assuming those dried solid fines left over from the treatment process are considered waste too.
Yes, they are. You can't just dump them anywhere again. You might need permits or exemptions.
So, it's crucial to check with the Environment Agency and make sure you are following the rules.
So, lots to consider when it comes to disposal. But overall, it sounds like these new guidelines are really trying to strike a balance. They're protecting the environment, but they're also trying to make sure construction projects can continue operating efficiently.
That's exactly right. It's about finding sustainable solutions that work for everyone.
Yes, I like that.
So before we were talking about how these new guidelines for concrete wash water are all about finding that sweet spot between protecting the environment, keeping your construction projects running smoothly.
And we went through some of the key things that the construction managers need to know, like method statements,
Yes, meticulous record keeping.
safe storage, and using approved treatment methods.
It's a lot to take in, but the RPS provides helpful guidance, and as long as you're following these guidelines, you should be okay.
It's like having a checklist for environmental peace of mind.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of these specifics. We talked about storage.
Yes, making sure you're using the right kind of tanks or lagoons to hold that water.
And of course, there's that 30 cubic meter limit per location.
Yes, which is important to keep in mind if you're working on a large site. But what about transportation of this water off-site? Are there any restrictions?
Definitely. Any company moving treated wash water off-site has to follow all waste carrier regulations.
Right, and that means working with a licensed waste carrier, doesn't it?
Exactly. And you need to keep a trail of paperwork from the point of collection right through to disposal.
So, more record keeping.
It's worth it to avoid any potential issues.
Definitely. Now, let's circle back to a really important point: communication with your team.
Yes, your entire team from your project managers down to the drivers needs to be clued up on these new guidelines.
Right? It's not just about putting the rules in place, but also making sure everyone understands why they're there
Yes,
and what role they play in keeping things compliant.
exactly.
A little knowledge can go a long way in preventing slip-ups.
With the right approach, using this regulatory position statement can be an opportunity to improve your site operations and reduce your environmental impact. Well, that just about wraps up our look at concrete wash water management and the new regulatory position statement. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates in construction compliance.